On a freezing midnight highway, a police officer found a little boy sitting alone under a broken streetlight. When asked if he was afraid, the boy quietly said, "No, because my dad promised he'd come back, and he never breaks his promises." The night was bitterly cold, the kind of cold that seemed to sink deep into the bones, and the empty highway stretched endlessly into darkness. A weak, flickering streetlight cast a pale yellow glow over a small figure sitting on the roadside. The 10-year-old boy sat quietly with his knees pulled close to his chest, his thin jacket doing little to protect him from the freezing wind. His backpack rested tightly in his arms, as if it were his only shield against the world. His lips trembled slightly from the cold, but his eyes held something unusual, a calm, steady faith that didn't match the loneliness of the moment. When a passing patrol car slowed and stopped beside him, the officer stepped out, his boots crunching softly against the gravel. He approached gently, not wanting to startle the child. "Hey there, son," he said in a warm voice. "It's really late. What are you doing out here all by yourself?" The boy looked up slowly, his face tired but peaceful. "I'm waiting for my dad. He told me to sit here. He said he would be back in 10 minutes. The officer's heart tightened as he checked the time. Nearly 5 hours had already passed. He had seen many heartbreaking situations before, but something about this boy felt different. There was no panic in his voice, no tears on his face, only quiet certainty. The officer gently convinced the boy to come to the station to warm up while they waited. Inside, the bright lights and soft heater made the room feel safe, yet the boy still refused to relax. Wrapped in a thick blanket, he sat near the entrance doors, his eyes fixed on them as though he believed they might open at any second. An officer placed a cup of hot chocolate in his hands, but he barely took a sip. "You should get some rest," someone suggested kindly. The boy shook his head slowly. "I can't sleep. What if he comes back and I'm not there? He told me to wait." His simple words carried such deep loyalty that the officers exchanged silent, emotional glances. Outside, the weather worsened. Heavy rain began pouring down, thunder roared across the sky, and flashes of lightning briefly illuminated the dark world beyond the windows. Hours dragged on painfully. Some officers quietly speculated that the father might have abandoned him, or that something terrible had happened. Yet every time they gently tried to prepare the boy for that possibility, he would calmly repeat the same words, almost like a quiet prayer. "My dad always comes back," he promised. As dawn slowly approached, the boy's eyelids grew heavy with exhaustion, but he kept forcing them open, fighting sleep with everything he had. His small fingers gripped the edge of the chair tightly, as if letting go meant losing hope. The station had grown quiet, and even the ticking of the clock sounded loud in the silence. Then, suddenly, just as the first faint gray light of morning appeared through the windows, the entrance doors burst open with a loud bang. A man stumbled inside, drenched completely, mud covering his clothes, his face bruised and pale, breathing in short, painful gasps. He looked like someone who had fought through a nightmare just to reach that place. His eyes scanned the room desperately until they landed on the boy, and in that instant, his entire body shook with emotion. The boy jumped up immediately and ran toward him, shouting, "Dad!" The man collapsed to his knees, pulling his son into his arms so tightly as if he feared losing him forever. Tears streamed uncontrollably down his face as he whispered, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Through broken breaths, the father explained that his truck had been struck by another vehicle on a remote stretch of road. The crash had flipped his truck into a ditch, trapping him inside for hours in the freezing rain. He had struggled desperately to escape, cutting his hands on broken glass, crawling through mud, and walking miles in pain, all because one thought kept pushing him forward: his son waiting alone in the dark. "I thought I might not make it," he admitted, his voice shaking, "but I couldn't stop thinking about you sitting there, trusting me." The boy gently touched his father's injured face, his eyes filled with relief, but not a single tear of anger. With a soft, innocent smile, he said words that silenced the entire room. "It's okay, Dad. I knew you would come. You always keep your promises." At that moment, even the toughest officers in the station felt their eyes fill with tears. They realized they were witnessing something far deeper than just a reunion. They were seeing the purest form of trust that exists in the world, a child's unshakable faith in a parent's love. It wasn't about money, success, or a perfect life. It was about loyalty, sacrifice, and a bond strong enough to survive fear, time, distance, and pain. As the father slowly lifted his son into his arms, despite his injuries, and carried him toward the quiet morning light outside, the storm had finally stopped. The sky was beginning to clear, and a soft, golden sunrise spread across the horizon. And in that peaceful moment, it became clear to everyone watching that real love is not about never facing hardships. It is about always finding the strength to come back, no matter how impossible the journey may seem, because someone you love is still waiting with faith in their heart.